Hey everyone, welcome to Startups on Demand, today, sponsored by New York Tech Media. Today I've got the awesome James Spiro, a friend and a tech journalist in CTech. He also writes for Times of Israel. He's also the guy who Elon Musk responded to on Twitter 2 days ago, and that kind of went viral. Everybody were like sharing it on LinkedIn. And today this is like a super, I think this will be like a super valuable episode. But it's also very time sensitive. So some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today might not be that relevant to, in the next 2 or 3 weeks, because we're talking about things that are going on currently in the news. And I think there's no better person than James Spiro to talk to him about this kind of stuff. So thanks, man, for taking the time.
Thank you, Omri. It's always a pleasure.
Awesome. So I want to start, and I mentioned the Elon Musk thing. I want to start over on that subject. So tech news have been crazy in the last few weeks. Elon Musk bought Twitter. He's been doing a lot of things and doing them in a really fast pace. The first thing, he did a major layoff. The second thing, he did this ultimatum where he basically said, if you're not willing to, work as hard as you can, you're not a fit for Twitter. A lot of people, a lot of Twitter folks kind of decided to leave. What's your first kind of impressions on how he's like handling this whole situation?
So yeah, it's important to note that kind of at the time of recording and that things change at 100 miles a minute. My take on the situation is it's basically never been a more exciting time to be on Twitter, to be watching all of this unfold in real time. I've always said that Twitter is kind of like the pulse of the world. It's like of the conversation, at least in the Western world, I should probably say. Presidents have governed on it, and then presidents govern because of it. So it's what's happening now is really crazy. Not only that someone has come in and has promised a review to what accounts were banned or shadow banned or bringing things back and firing the people, but also the tone in which he's doing it very publicly, and he's doing it very openly. And he's criticizing the government and he's criticizing the media, and people seem to be scared about it, but then people seem to be loving it, and he's getting 500,000 likes on his tweets. I mean, he's speaking something that a lot of people are resonating with and excited about. So for me, as an observer, it's one of the most exciting times on the platform. I've been on the platform since 2009, and I learned about it in journalism school. And it was that movement of kind of going from broadcast to new media. And I remember thinking at the time, like, wow, the power this platform has for news and journalism and information is just extraordinary. And so to be there 13 years later and seeing all of this happen, for me, it's fun, but I kind of like none of it's the end of the world. So I'm just kind of enjoying the chaos of watching it for now. Interesting.
So a few things here. So, one of the, I don't know if you saw, I'm sure you did, since Musk kind of started governing Twitter's and after he bought it, he's really emphasizing this whole citizen journalism thing, which we bless all like, because obviously he has an agenda, right? He wants to show that like Twitter is like the town square of the world, and that everyone can have, a democratic say and kind of provide information, which I agree with. Now, you're coming with two backgrounds, because on one hand, you're a certified, journalist. And on the other hand, if someone follows your work, they can see you write a lot about like this new creator economy thing. You've had a lot of really great articles on that from like Nas Daily, and you've wrote, I don't remember, but you touched the creator economy a few times in your writings. So what's your take on someone who has like 1 foot there and 1 foot on the other side?
So I've been interested in the creator economy and the democratization of news, basically, is how I see it. And I think it's how Elon Musk sees it as well. I think what Musk is showing through his acquisition and subsequent behavior is that he's a bit fed up with places like the New York Times or Fox or CNN or the BBC pushing what he believes to be an editorial agenda, whether that's for political. Sorry, pardon me.
No worries.
Sorry. We can either edit that, or I can show your listeners how busy I am.
Yeah,
Okay.
easily edit it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cheers. Let me go back a bit. What was I saying? What I think, and what I think Elon Musk shares is he's a bit fed up with the media, and he's a bit fed up with what New York Times is saying, and he's a bit fed up with what the New York Post is saying, and what Fox is saying, and what CNN is saying. So what he wants to do is put the power back to people. And I think last time we spoke, I touched on something about the future of media, and I said it was person-centric, and I said that one day people are going to be following people, and they're not going to sit and open up the New York Times. They're going to sit and they're going to listen to a podcast that Omri is making, but also appearing on, because they're following Omri and his articles and his appearances, and hopefully James and his appearances and his articles. And I think what Elon Musk is doing is shattering the ceiling on that, and he's really saying to individuals, you report the story, you go on the ground. I mean, we saw what happened with the Arab Spring, the early days of Twitter. I mean, that citizen journalism changed history for some of it. And I think that's what he's excited about. And I think that is what these legacy media companies are threatened by. So it's fascinating. At this moment of history is just an interesting one. Whatever happens is a fascinating time.
It is. It super is. And we're just, and I'm talking to the audience here, like we're in the midst of this. We're like, we don't know how this will play out. This can go on to like every day there's like news about it, Twitter, maybe Twitter is not gonna be live in a few weeks. Other people say, no, this is just the start. Twitter is gonna, kind of amplify its reach now and even become profitable. But one of the most controversial things that Musk is doing is everything around the verification, the blue check mark, the blue tick. I'll go ahead and say what my opinions on this is, and I'm biased. So I have a blue check mark, and I personally feel like I worked super hard to get it by writing for a lot of publications, for Yahoo Finance, Forbes. Like I've been in the lab trying to get that, and like I've been really kind of excited when I got that check mark, and now everyone can basically buy it with $8. What's your take on that?
$8 a month.
$8 a month.
Yeah.
Wait, but James, I have a question. This is something that I'm not sure about. Maybe you will have the answer. If I already have a blue check mark, do I still need to pay the $8 a month just to keep it? Or
okay, so here's where things stand at the moment. So anyone that has, so I'm in the same situation as you, by the way. I got verified about a year ago, and it immediately changed my experience of Twitter, not just on the pride you have as for being verified, and some of the feelings that come with that, but also I think you're ranked higher in replies to tweets. The algorithm kind of plays around with it a bit to boost these authoritative and verified accounts. As for the payment of it and how it works, it's only available for people via Twitter Blue. So now what happens is accounts that have 10 followers, 20 followers that have been around for maybe 2 weeks can now be verified, so long as they give Twitter a credit card. It's difficult for a few reasons, and I wrote an article about this recently. The libertarian in me is kind of like, go for it. Everyone deserves the opportunity to have a blue tick if that's what they want. If they don't want it, they don't need it. It should be open to everyone. Another side of it is, well, actually, they are there for a reason. And so what we're seeing now is people paying the $8 to pretend to be someone that they're not, because all you need to do is pay to troll now. He's added a payment for trolling, and it's not going to solve the problems he thinks it's going to solve. I think the fascinating thing about Musk is that he operates in real time, very publicly. So when something comes up and doesn't work out, it's removed and changed and tweaked. I have faith in the system that it's all going to work out. Currently, for people like you and me, we're based in Israel. Twitter Blue isn't available to us. So we can't pay the $8 even if we would want to. I think Musk said a few weeks ago that everyone will be losing their verification status unless they pay for it. I saw that in a tweet. Again, it might change. I quote retweeted saying, oh, it's a bit annoying. Again, we're going to have to wait and see. I think at the moment the blue tick's being diluted, and I think it's a shame for those that have it and for those that rely on it. I think it's one of the reasons why journalists are so upset. But I think it'll sort itself out. I think that Scott Galloway used to say this, and he's an interesting example of being a member of new media, but also he had a show on CNN for a bit, but it didn't work out. Well, not CNN, but CNN Plus. He said, nothing is ever as good or as bad as you think. And I think we all need to take a bit of a break and consider those words by him, because Twitter's not going to end tomorrow. It's not going to cause World War III. It's not going to do any of the bad things it's going to do. It's probably not going to do any of the amazing things that a lot of conservatives think it's going to do now that Musk is in charge. So all we can do is sit, see what happens, and again, see these kinks kind of get flattened out as time goes on.
So, the verification thing, that's a solution from Musk to a root cause, to a root problem that Twitter is facing. Twitter is not profitable. The expenses Twitter had were insane compared to the amount of revenue they're getting. And he doesn't want to rely on advertisers, right? And for someone like you, that you're coming, you've basically been in the media industry since you graduated. And not to mention, you kind of, before you went into journalism, you were all about cinema. So you always thought about media as like an avenue for your career in one way or another, right? So I'm like really interested to hear from you, like, what do you think some of the revenue streams, and what do you think some of, monetization opportunities does media platforms have nowadays, where they can't be relied on advertisers? People are not buying in subscriptions at the same amount as they do. Like, what's your take on that? Like, where is it going? Like, what other options are there?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good point, because I think I read somewhere, I don't have the figure in my head now, but it was Elon Musk needs to have X amount of people sign up for Twitter Blue for it to be worth what he wants it to be worth. I think advertising is inevitable. I think that when you have platforms like this with hundreds of millions of people on them, you're going to have a promoted tweet and you're going to have adverts before videos. Israel actually isn't that bad with advertising on Twitter. You don't see it so much here, but whenever I fly to the States with work, I get off the plane, and of course the first thing I do is check Twitter, and I'm always blown away by how many adverts are on Twitter in the States. So I don't think it's a problem that you and I experience firsthand as much as kind of what the conversation is. I think he wants to reduce the adverts and the advertisements. I also think he wants to make money in a kosher way. He doesn't want the data, with social media, it's like you are the product, right? It's, if you don't pay for it. And I think he wants to get rid of some of that. I don't see how he's going to do it right now. But, things that people are forgetting is that Musk has a proven track record of running businesses properly. And it seems like what he's done, especially with the layoffs that we saw at the start of his journey there, he goes in, he cuts all the crap, basically, all the fats out of all the fats. Yeah, let's use that word. He cuts all the fats. He gets rid of all the excess, and he makes it operate in a better way, and he streamlines a lot of the processes, and he thins it out to make it operate the best it can operate. And I think we're just seeing it publicly play out very loudly, and I think people aren't very good at seeing things like that, because
they usually happen in like closed doors, and
they happen behind closed doors, and people, people don't get comfort from watching the stock market every day when it goes up and down. You can't panic over every time something goes down, because it's going to go up the next day. And I think there's just a lot of outrage at the moment, and I think that he will sort out his revenue streams and I think it was losing $4 million a day, Twitter, is what I heard, and he'll do that by firing a lot of people that go to the office and sit there by the coffee machine and have their latte and take a nap and don't sit and work 16 hours a day and aren't as inclined to make a difference. So and it also helps him when people are insulting him. His employees are insulting him every day, so he makes that easy for him.
Yeah, for sure. So
I don't know what would happen if I went on Twitter and I just started like berating my boss very publicly. And then you see all these Twitter employees being like, oh, that's it. Like Musk fired me after I spoke out against him. It's like, yeah, like what boss or employer wouldn't fire a disgruntled employee making very public? I don't know. It's a level of strange. It's strange to me.
Yeah. Well, okay. So the last kind of before you move on to like the next topic we have for today. So just like one last thing. So, Musk, you said he has a proven track record. Musk is probably the biggest entrepreneur in the world right now. So, he has Tesla, he has SpaceX, now he has Twitter. So he basically has the cars, he has the spaceships, now he has the media platform to himself. And I have a sense of feeling that since he took over, his tweets have begun to become even more viral. Well, they've always been super viral, right? But I feel like he can control. He can make sure that every tweet he has will be the first tweet you see when you log on Twitter. What do you think about that and like the ethical standpoint of him, like, writing the narrative, so to speak, for what he wants?
So I think the reason why he bought Twitter is so things like that don't happen. I don't think he wants someone to be the face of Twitter. I think half the time, I think he's not really thinking about what he's tweeting. He's just having some fun. But there was a funny story about, and this just goes to your point of the importance of Twitter and what I said early on about how much it runs the world, because President Trump used to play a joke in the White House. He used to invite guests into the Oval Office and he'd say, look at this. And he'd whip out his phone and he'd ping, 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 click, tweet. And he'd watch the TV. And about 30 seconds later, the news would say, all right, we have a new tweet. This is what the president is. And he goes, I can do that from here. I can just change the media from here. So Twitter has that power. There's no denying that the world does run off of it. And when I say it's the pulse of the conversation, it really is. I mean, I don't think Musk wants to do that. I don't think he wants to be the voice that is the top of everyone's timeline. I think he wants to go back to that citizen journalism, democratization. I think he wants everyone to have the chance to do it. I think it's noble. I think that, as you said at the start of this, he replied to one of my tweets the other day, which blew up my phone for like 2 days. So now all I'm seeing is his tweets because the algorithm is showing me more of the people I engage with. It just happens to be him this week. By next week it'll be someone else.
Maybe by next week it'll be Jack Dorsey or something. Who knows?
Yeah, I gotta stalk more people on Twitter and reply to their tweets as soon as he's been quiet actually as well. I haven't heard much from him.
Interesting. That's interesting. He's smart. We both know like this guy is like, he's super mindful and he's super like smart. I do know he's working on Blue Sky, which is a new social media platform that is supposedly has been funded initially by Twitter. So I don't know how, So I don't know how it will play out, but it's super interesting to see what he's working on. Jack Dorsey, every time he kind of went quiet for a while, it actually means he's like really hands-on working on something. So it'll be super interesting. And if you talked about citizen journalism, and this kind of takes us to Democrats in a sense, and this kind of takes us to FTX. Because
what's that?
What's that, right? Yeah. Like, because the FTX guy, SBF, well, he was the second largest donor in the Biden Democrat Party, right? I think the second one. I'm not don't count.
No, I think he was the highest by a lot. I think
he was the highest.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And where's that money came from? Is that user money? Does Biden have to return that money back to?
Well, I think it's all a bit strange that all of this thing happened. The whole thing with that collapsed. It was like the day after the midterms, right? It was like he was funding the 2020 or funding. He was donating to the 2020 election for the Democrats. I think it's also important to note that his number two or his was also donating to the Republicans. So that organization was sending a lot of money to both parties. The Democrats got the publicity, the bad publicity for that, but it was going to both parties. But it also seemed to collapse the day after the midterms, which was a bit fishy. And the journalist in me is like, oh, well, hang on, like the place that's sending all the money to one political party has kind of collapsed the day after the election, and no media's really reporting on it, and that's a bit strange. And then you dig a bit deeper and you see that it was also funding all of the media outlets that were reporting or not reporting on it. So that's a fascinating one, and we're seeing it all collapse on Twitter. It was a tweet that brought it down, I think, right? It was the Binance guy that tweeted, and it was kind of like a deck of cards.
Yeah. So just some context, okay?
Yeah, please. I think you know about this a bit more than me, so I think.
Well, I think you. I don't know if I know it more than you, but just some context so people can understand. And I'm gonna kind of like simplify this for our audience, just for like the people who don't read into the articles. And I also have to say, for like disclosure purposes, that I don't invest in, like, I don't have any crypto investments, but I do invest in Coinbase, in the actual stock of Coinbase, which I'll kind of tell how it's involved in some sense. So, and essentially what happened is FTX had another research group called Alameda Research. I might not be pronouncing it correctly. Alameda Research is basically like a hedge fund. They're a private hedge fund. They invest in crypto ventures. And essentially what happened is, and I'm just really oversimplifying it, but just so people can understand the structure. They have, in the recent bear market in the crypto landscape, they've lost a lot of money. And ideally, Alameda Research should have went bankrupt, the actual hedge fund group. Now, instead of declaring bankruptcy and kind of, which can like ruin their reputation, right? Because Sam Bankman-Fried is supposedly a crypto expert, and now he lost so much money in the crypto market. So allegedly, that's what they were supposed to do. And instead, what they did is they took customer funds out of FTX. So FTX is an exchange like Coinbase is. So they took, but Coinbase is regulated, FTX is not. So they took those customer funds and loaned it to Alameda Research, and then used that as collateral to kind of, do investments. Now, how the collapse happened is that there was an article, a story ran by CoinDesk, I think. I might be mistaken.
Yeah, no, it was.
Yeah, and I think it was CoinDesk, that they said that they got a leak basically saying that in Alameda Research, there's no real equity over there anymore. It's only their coin, FTT, which is another story of itself, and that there is no real, essential cash liquid money in that place, in that research group. And then Binance kind of, they holded a lot of FTT coins because they invested into FTX, and they started selling it out. And then, basically the FTX collapsed. All the info started, coming out, all the details, which we're not going to really, it's going to be like a 3-hour podcast show just to talk about the details, right? And the situation is currently now is that there's this guy who really committed fraud. So like, just for our audience, and I'm super passionate about this, Sam Bankman-Fried and Elizabeth Holmes are not Adam Neumann and Travis Kalanick from Uber. While Adam Neumann and Travis Kalanick are supposedly controversial, they didn't commit fraud. They're legit entrepreneurs that are like building, right? And these two people, I know you read Bad Blood, right?
I love Bad Blood, yeah.
You read Bad Blood. So I'm waiting to see what kind of book or what kind of TV show is gonna be on this guy. And people are saying I don't want to like sentence him, but like people are really aggressive on what they think he should be getting out of this, right?
Yeah, that speaks on such a larger conversation as well, because we're really seeing a reckoning coming with all these kind of tech people, these Elizabeth Holmes and what's happening now. Adam Neumann, I would say, it is kind of in there as well. He didn't commit fraud, but he wasn't committing fraud, but he was selling desks and as a tech company. And I think that what's happening in society at the moment is really interesting, that we're not actually, whereas 10 or 15 years ago, we were praising the Steve Jobses of the world, this generation is, we're not any Steve Jobses, we're not quite there, and we're the opposite. People our age are the fraudsters. And I think it's so interesting, and what you said about the media, and I don't mean the news media, I mean like the content that's coming out of it, the books and the podcasts and the TV shows. So when it comes to Bad Blood, I didn't watch The Dropout. The Dropouts, I think that was the name of the Hulu show.
That's the Disney show. Yeah, it's on Disney. If someone wants, if you're in Israel, you can only watch it on Disney.
On Disney, but it's the show of Elizabeth Holmes. So I didn't watch that because I did the documentary, the book, and the podcast. And I thought, okay, that's enough. I don't need to do the television show of it. And it's the same with Adam Newman. I haven't seen the dramatized versions yet. But you're right, what you say about the media, the content being made of these people, because the last few years we've had a rough run of young people that want to be the next Steve Jobs, that just not doing it, doing the opposite. Yeah.
And now there's the Sam Bankman-Fried guy who is, he's like what he's done is really, he basically stole money. And I'm really interested to see how this plays out. But the question I have for you regarding this specific story is not on the actual details, but on the kind of like the context of what happened. So what made this story so in detail once, the New York Times and other publications have done really fluff pieces, they call it. It's citizen journalism on Twitter that has been able to produce a lot of details around and a lot of content around this story, a lot of what seems to be accurate content. So do you as a journalist see yourself, and I don't know how politically correct this is, but do you see yourself, when a story is going out on one computer, on one monitor, kind of writing that, 600-word article for CTech, and on another screen, just kind of putting that Twitter thread in place and just kind of attacking on both ways, just because you know how important the actual citizen journalism on Twitter is? So
I don't want to, I want to choose my words carefully.
You need to choose your words carefully here, it's a good question.
What I would say is that news, one of the things that inspired, gets me up in the morning and to my desk to kind of do this work, is that it unbelievably frustrates me because you can lie through omission. And what I find the media does a lot of the mainstream media, they lie through omission, and politicians lie through omission. It's a very common way of being truthful, but kind of not stating all the facts or not giving enough context for it. And I find that context is just unbelievably important. And I think that is where citizen journalism can really kick in. An example of that was when the Biden administration said, we're raising Social Security by 10%. It's the highest increase in Social Security in 40 years. You're welcome. Was it factually correct that happened? Yes. What was the context? The context is, given a law signed by Richard Nixon 50 years ago, Social Security has to rise at the same rate of inflation. So what the Biden administration was admitting is that Social Security was rising the highest ever because inflation was rising the highest ever. They ended up deleting the tweet because you had the citizen journalists adding I think it used to be called Birdwatch. I think now it's been changed to Community Notes. It's the name of it now.
It's like the fact checking.
It's a fact checker. Yeah, it's a fact checker that anyone can contribute to. It's actually what Jimmy Wales from Wikipedia, he's building a new social media.
Oh, you interviewed him.
I spoke to him last week. He's building something similar to the Community Notes, what Elon Musk is producing.
Just cutting you off for a second, just because I will forget this. That interview, where can we find it? Is it on CTech or Times?
That's on CTech. Yeah, that's on CTech. It's also my pinned tweet right now on my Twitter. So if you visit me on Twitter and follow me, then you'll see that tweet there. that's the citizen journalism that for me is really admirable, when you can have people, everyday people, push back and say, what you're saying isn't the whole story. You're giving me a crack in the window of what the story is. And that's what's happening nowadays. The people are doing that Musk is doing, what's happening with FTX, with the story that's breaking, with the media that's reporting on it. He's saying, you guys aren't giving the whole story. Like, this is what's happening. And it's fascinating. And I think that the legacy media outlets in America and in England are threatened by that. They're threatened by the narrative that they were building being shattered. Yeah. So bring it back to CTech, I don't see any of that happening in CTech. CTech is a very honest publication that posts all of the truth, whether it's good or bad. And you can see that in the celebrations of the funding, and you can see that in the difficult times of the tech crisis that Israel and the world seems to be in at the moment.
Okay, so you took us you very smoothly took us to the next to the next and last kind of point of conversation here. Okay, so just some context for the audience. Okay, James covers a lot of funding announcements, probably all Israeli funding announcements by Israeli startups on CTech. So and I don't know if you know this, but a lot of people just bookmark your column, or because a lot of investors do that. Why? Because they want to see what's going on in the market. So that's like a pulse. It's like the pulse. You got a pulse on what's going on in the market. So they do it for you in CTech, and they do it on TechCrunch for like the global stuff. Yeah. And they also do it for like Business Wire to just see if there's anyways. But what I'm saying is that you have a deep pulse and a deep understanding of what's going on, and you can kind of see the statistics, and you kind of see, and I think, it's pretty obvious that there's, this is a really challenging time for a lot of tech startups. What do you see from your side in terms of fundraising?
So first of all, it's really flattering to be put alongside TechCrunch. So thank you for sharing that. That's quite flattering, quite surprising. It's no surprise that last year was just crazy amounts of money. I mean, everything was going wonky. I mean, the concept of series rounds meant nothing because you were getting these 20 million round Series A rounds, and you were getting 9-figure Series D rounds, and there was just so much money being pumped into the market, into the Israeli market and the global market, but specifically the Israeli market. It broke all records. The problem with that is that money needs to be spent. You can't just sit on cash like that. You need to either buy companies, develop tech, or hire staff. So a lot of companies were hiring, going on a hiring spree, doubling their headcount, buying companies, spending all this money. And nowadays, it's kind of all, none of these companies are making a profit. It's all kind of catching up with them now. So the easiest way for companies to start focusing on getting profitable, one of the easiest ways to cut costs is, unfortunately, headcount. So this isn't unique to Israel. I mean, famously, we're seeing it with Meta, who they just fired 13,000 people, I think, 7% of their workforce, or 11% of their workforce. I think Netflix did it. Twitter obviously did it. It's happening everywhere because companies now investors are saying, hey, where's our money? When's our money coming in? So it's happening there. What we're seeing is that it's affecting the growth companies a lot more than the early stage. The early stage of the companies that are they have maybe 5 million in the bank, 8 million, they've done a pre-seed or a seed round, super early. They may not even be in the market yet. They're still working out their product or service. They're the ones that seem to be not so fazed by this. And the investors that I speak to feel comfortable in the early stage. They say that the crisis is kind of over their heads, and that people are still investing 500,000 here, 2 million there. I think it will pick up next year. I hope. I don't know. It's a bit of a depressing time. I mean, CTech has developed. CTech is the place where all the funding is announced, but it's also the place where, unfortunately, all of the firings have also been announced. We have some good sources and good reporters on the streets of Startup Nation that are reporting as it happens. You know, I'll be editing a story on Monday morning, and it will say company X is letting go 10% of its employees on Monday afternoon, and it's like, oh god, like I'm like writing it ahead of the happening. It's a tough time. I think it's all going to balance out. I'm hearing a lot of people, investors, being like, okay, we had the party, this is now the hangover. Or like, you know, it's like everyone's kind of coming back to earth a bit, and I think that's important. I think it's, you know,
yeah, it's gonna transition the ecosystem, I think, to a much healthier place. And you know, people saw it already. You know, all the .com people, you know, that have all the veterans already saw this kind of, you know, curve happening. Right. Yeah. So I have two last questions for you, and you've been super generous with your time, so I really appreciate it. I'll ask them one by one. So, is there any specific Israeli startup that you've been kind of focusing on, or has been gaining your attention on recently? I personally, I don't have like strings attached, so I can kind of say, I'm really interested in learning more about Rapid by
okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Have you seen the news?
No, not recently.
They let go. They were also hit.
Really?
Let me get it up. Hang on. Let me.
James, did you do a profile piece with your CEO?
I've spoken to Rapid before. I can't remember who exactly, but yeah, I've got it here. They're going to lay off around 10% of their employees.
Oof.
Dozens. That news was 2 days ago.
2 days ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they raised $300 million last year.
Yeah,
so it's the big companies that are getting hit by it. The early stage smaller companies are a bit more nimble and they can navigate the area a bit more. But it's these big mega companies that are popping. It's a shame. So, a lot of good hardworking people are losing their jobs, and it's not fair.
And a lot of it is kind of ironic, thinking about all of this employer branding, I would say BS that happened, you know, last year, where people were like advertising on Ayalon and like, you know, all this signs, and the same companies are laying off employees. So basically, you spend all this money to get the employees in the first place. You got the employees, and now you're firing them. So so what's like the, you know, so that's insane. But
and the chefs that go to the office every day, but no one's going to the office because everyone's working from home. So
insane. So is there like a specific company that you would like want to get into like a deep dive analysis on them in the next few weeks or something?
So for me, it's not so much a company, but for me, it's I look at it in sectors. And one of the great things about what I do is that I get bored quite easily in life. So I can hop between different sectors of the tech world, and it's really interesting. And I can go into cyber for a bit, I can transport or AI. And at the moment, what I'm really enjoying is the food tech industry. Now, food tech, it's not just because it's delicious and eating food is nice. And I'm a big foodie anyway, so I'm give me a plant-based burger and I'm happy. But it's more to it for me than that. I just don't see any downside to it. And I'm not one of these environmentalists, and I'm not one of these progressive kind of people that, you know, would rather sail across the Atlantic than fly for the environment. But I don't see much of a downside to it. It's if we can save the amount of water that is produced to make a hamburger, and if we can save those animals' lives, and if we can just eat healthier, better food, I think all of that's really noble. And I think that the sector, for me, grabs like my heartstrings the most. So it's not so much that I'm looking at a company. I follow quite a lot of companies, and I have my eyes on quite a few of them. Nothing serious, but just because the names come up. But the sector for me is a really good one. It's environment, health, and what was the first thing you said? Animal welfare. And that's for me. That's what I'm most passionate about.
Interesting. Awesome. Last question, book recommendations. I'll go ahead and say mine. and I know you would like it. I don't know if you read it. So Ryan Holiday, he had a new book, not the courage one, the one
Discipline.
about the discipline. So
Yeah, I just got it like 2 days ago.
fantastic book, fantastic.
It's my next read, actually.
So really great book. I finished reading it 2 days ago or 3 days ago. Really good, really great book. What's on your bookshelves right now, or what have you read recently that you want to recommend?
So, we should say the full title of that Ryan Holiday book. It's Discipline is the Key or something. Discipline is
Destiny.
Discipline is Destiny. Okay, so that's part 2 of a 4-part series. He's touching on 4 parts of Stoicism. That's a great choice. That's my next read. What I'm reading right now is The Wires of War. It's a long title, so I had to Google the entire title, so I got it right. The Wires of War: Technology and the Global Struggle for Power. So it's a book by Jacob Hellberg. He was in Israel earlier this year. It was during Cyber Week. He was giving a talk, and I bought the book as he was talking on Amazon. It's basically about technology and its role in geopolitics. So it's the fight for the future of the internet, and it's basically America versus China, and what China's idea of the internet is, and America's idea of the internet, the West and the East. Super interesting. If you like politics, if you like tech, if you like
the intersection of politics and tech.
But like, I can't think of a book better in that intersection. It really is. And I'm a politics geek outside of tech. So for me, it's
we saw the UK twits. We saw.
yeah. So I'm really enjoying that book, The Wires of War, it's called. And it's annoying because I actually carry it with me wherever I go. I was at a wedding last week, and I brought it out during dinner, and I was showing the person next to me the book that I was reading. And I don't have it with me today, so I can't show you on the camera, but I'll send you a link after this.Maybe we can put something up on the screen.
Yeah,
but that's what I would recommend to any tech geeks and politics nerds out there like me.
And just before we kind of close off, what was can you, like, I think I got it, but I don't know if I got the whole joke. What was the thing about like the lettuce lasted longer? Did they actually like test it out, or is it like?
Yeah, so Liz Truss is like she's the former Prime Minister of Britain. For those who have already forgotten her, she was Prime Minister for 44 days, and 10 of those days she didn't do anything because the country was in national mourning because the Queen died 2 days later. We have a joke in Britain. It's like the Queen saw 14 prime ministers, took one look at Liz Truss and was like, nope, not doing it. But of course, I was very upset when the Queen died, and may she rest in peace and all of that. But she basically did a lot of bad things very, very quickly. And one newspaper outlet, I think it was one of the British tabloids, I think it was the Daily Mirror or something, they put a picture of a lettuce and a picture of Liz Truss and took a photo. They said, who's going to last longer, this lettuce or this prime minister? And it was a complete meme, and it was a joke, and no one meant anything by it seriously. And as the days were going on and the government was kind of falling apart, people started looking like, oh wow, like maybe actually this lettuce will outlive this prime minister, and it did. It was the lettuce was still there.
This is great.
By the time Rishi Sunak became prime minister,
wow,
the third in 6 weeks.
This is crazy. This is crazy.
British politics is British politics. Like America's politics is more sensational. Like it's very loud and bombastic and big, but British politics is very like clumsy and awkward and just it's fascinating.
You should read. Yeah, I know you probably don't, but like I'm telling the audience, you should check out once a week The Sun. It's hilarious. The Sun. It's a website. It's a news outlet.
It was at its time. I'm not sure if this is still the case. It was the most popular newspaper in circulation in the country.
Dude, it's so funny. It's like half. I don't know how you say it. Like it's half, gossipy and half like factual, and it like gets blended together. And yeah, it's insane. It's insane.
Yeah, because the reporting from the Sun is actually it's not bad. It does have a very strong tabloid aspect to it.
Tabloid, that's
yeah, it's very tabloid. It's a bit like the New York Post. It's that kind of the British equivalent. Same owner, I think. They're all Murdoch papers. But it's that blend of tabloid, but there's also quite good political reporting coming out of the Sun. So shouldn't take it so its critics shouldn't brush it off so easily.
By the way, did you see Succession? Do you watch Succession?
I love Succession. Yeah,
amazing.
Succession.
I'm waiting for the next season to come out already.
Yeah, the trailer just dropped for season 4, I think.
Season 4, I didn't see.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, that's a fantastic show. That's a great show. Another one I would recommend as well is Veep on HBO. That is a remake of a British show called
Veep. VEEP.
Okay. Is a remake of a British show called The Thick of It, and it's the British equivalent of that. And if you like politics, and if you like the media, and if you like all of that, then that's a really fun show. It's a good satire.
Interesting. We'll check it out. Also, check out White Lotus.
Yeah, I mean, I watched that yesterday. The new episode yesterday.
I did. Me too.
But HBO has some of the best content, I think. You can't beat HBO content. It's really, really up there.
Wait, how did you get HBO in Israel? I watch it through
I have Sting TV.
Sting TV has HBO. All the shows.
Sting TV has HBO shows every day. Well, not every day, but like the day after it airs on HBO, you get it on Sting TV via yeah.
Okay, I'll check it out for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Let's do this in a few months and see what happens. And
definitely.
And
I just want to say I'm a huge fan of everything that you're doing and the presence you've kind of created for yourself online. It's super impressive. I see all of the articles you write and all the things you do. It's pretty cool. So keep up the good work as well on your end, because it's
Thank
pretty
you,
fun.
man. I really appreciate it. And you already know that I'm super big fan of yours, and I've been following you for years now already.
Thank you. Here's to many more.
Bye, man.
Cheers.